Hi guys, I'm going to just do this as a video because I can't find the supporting information from online newspapers and blogs, etc. Because it's just really my thoughts of what I've been presenting over the last 3 days. And I'm just going to put out some thoughts about 4 categories of thoughts which don't always link together, and I'm just going to ask for your help to see if you can help me make sense of them. But I'm just going to tell you where the presentations of the last 3 days have left Mr. Mystic Mind. Right, first is games, and what I mean by games are macro rules, games that can be seen from zooming out and looking at a macro view of economics, the world, business, what goes on, the newspapers, etc. You can see games, and it's not esoteric. I mean, they're there, and I'll try and explain those. First, the 3 categories of games: household, business, and government. So household isn't really a game. It doesn't count as what I'm calling a game, and it's just, mystic terminology, a game, because it stops. People die, they sell the house, the household breaks up, and it can't be tracked. It's not an ongoing game. I'll leave it there. The other 2 are ongoing, and it's very important to note that makes a big difference. That businesses can be ongoing for hundreds of years, and governments can be ongoing for hundreds of years. So the rules of the game are slightly different. They can make a loss and can be bankrolled by banks, financed by financiers, to get back in the game later. So rules of the game, very simple. Business, you make a profit or you don't. If you don't make a profit enough and you can't get yourself financed by a financier, banked by a banker, then you're out of the game. And we see this from macro thing, you're out of the game. And somebody else will take over. Government's the same. The let's call it the technical. I don't know what else to call it. The technical rules of the game is that you spend what you take in taxes, and if you can't, you borrow the difference, and you keep that game going until that stops. But generally, countries don't stop. They just have a reset of the internal rules of their game. Now, just trying to think now what's important for this. It's really to say that when we talk about things like money and business and government and things like that, we don't think about it as a game, but if you do think about it as a game, it is a game. And many of the rules, some of them written, some of them unwritten, for business and government are to keep that game within parameters, within rules. Now, there is absolutely no reason for this at all. The best example is government. What is the reason for them having to do something because they don't borrow enough, can't get enough money? And even right down to business. If they don't make enough profit, they go out of business. As in, they go defunct if they can't get enough money. But when you think about it, it's somewhere between an arbitrary rule and a sensible rule. It's not a God-given rule. It doesn't have to be that way. It's just that circumstance has worked it out that it is that way. Because you could say, well, it isn't 100. It's not cast iron 100% logical, and it hasn't been put there because it is. It's just the best way. If you're not making a profit, you're probably not doing things right, and if you're not doing things right, it's best that you go away and let somebody else come in and do it right. And you think, well, that's perfectly logical, but it isn't. Hopefully, it's impossible to explain. I'm finding it impossible anyway. But they're not rules that are there, that were written in the beginning on slates of anything. It's just, it's developed that way. So businesses go out of business if they can't do business, and governments kind of go out of business if they can't do their business. But they don't, the company, business will go away and a new name will come on. Sometimes they rename a country, but generally what happens, they shuffle things around until the government can get going again. They could do that with business, and that's what I'm trying to point out, that it's semi-arbitrary why and when businesses start and stop and what the rules are. And this is why in the last 3 days I've been kind to say, for money and things like that, it's not hard and fast what things are. It's again, circumstances have made it, and the arbitrage and things like that I've spoken of are part of the game because they are part of the game. They have been part of the game. The Industrial Revolution established it. I mean, it was always part of the game, right back to, I don't know, cavemen. I can't justify that, but it really showed itself to be that way in the Industrial Revolution, when you were hugely successful. And what is being hugely successful? Owning a huge house and having lots of servants. For some reason that's successful. And why is that successful? It's not. It's just that is part of the game, and it's not a win. Just sitting at home and working in a factory and smoking your pipe and having a lovely family, you could call that a win. But arbitrarily we look upon the game and we can see winners and losers and the way the game's played for success and failure. And having the big house and the big servants was a success for no reason. It's just because. And that is what I'm trying to shove in this. And it's very difficult to explain that all these things are just because. Just because that's the way we look at things. But they don't have to be that way. And money, we look upon it in a certain way, but it is not particularly anything. It's just however we want to look at it from our point of view. But the point of view that really counts is in, particularly, the business game. And for the business game, it is profit. It is a counter for counting profit. And from that profit, normally come the essential for running a country and for keeping households alive. Okay, I made a little note of what I had to do. So that was number 1. Supermarket is the heading for number 2. From what I've said the last 3 days, the way I'm seeing this is, I won't go into again how oil prices have come up to cut down the arbitrage gaps, the profit gaps for business. So I think what we've got now, the opportunities are still there, and they are millions and trillions, huge. But they are not big gaps to be exploited. They're just trillions of small gaps to be exploited. So the way of making big profits at that is supermarketing, of grabbing a big market share to multiply by that market share these small arbitrage opportunities, because the big arbitrage opportunities aren't there. And what this gives us is more power to the bigger companies. The bigger companies there are, the more they can exploit trillions of small arbitrage opportunities. And I'm thinking this could, as it goes on, as I think it will, also help the bigger countries. The bigger countries that you are, the more that you can exploit these trillions of small bankable, arbitrage unitlets. And size is essential. If you're small, you just can't exploit enough of them to make it in the game. A comment I made this morning, which sounded like it made sense to me, but I couldn't justify it in the comments, is as things go on, and if the price, this was if the price of oil, say, goes to $400 a barrel, of today's price, today's unit of money sort of thing, there will be bigger arbitrage opportunities to exploit. Profit probably will be makeable. And I expressed it as even there will be enough profits to spread around the people enough, maybe. So there will be enough money to spread around. We will have more money again, as we go over the peak, and the difference between oil and manpower goes larger. It can be exploited to make more money. So people could have more money, but they will have less things, because there will be fewer resources. Now, I don't know how that works. It just feels right to me that we can have more money, but less things. Now, because we're programmed this way, we think about that now, and about how if we have more money, less things, that means inflation, and inflation means this and that and the other. And I'm saying, no, don't go down that road. It's just not what I'm talking about. Somehow, I feel the saying, the thing I said, that we'll have more money but less things, actually makes sense, but it doesn't in the inflation road. That is not the road it's trying to explain. And I don't know really what it does explain, so I'll leave it open. And the last thing is housing, and it kind of comes in from that last one. Whatever happens, because of the way we have housing, small cottages, bigger houses, very big houses, mansions, let's say, and they're spread around in a pyramidical sort of way. Little houses there are lots of, not so much, and only a few huge houses. It's inconceivable that the game won't be played to fill those houses equally, as in the way they are now. It's inconceivable that we can have a 1% at the top that takes the mansions, and 99% at the bottom, but that would need to have more smaller houses built for them, because we've got a housing stock for the middle. And I can't help thinking that somehow that is going to be a main driver of things, but behind the scenes, because you can't... Something absolutely mega major would have to happen for the big bulldozers to come in, the big machines, to pull out huge amounts of, say, what we'd call middle class housing, because it's no longer viable. So somewhere along the line, for the strange reason that so much time, effort, money and resources has gone into making this middle class housing, a system might have to form itself around it, because it's so established. And again, that's a thought that seems logical to me, but I don't see how it can possibly have other things that work for it, because the way we seem to be going, the housing looks like it's all wrong for where we're going. But if the housing's all wrong for where we're going, the amount of effort, money and resources that would have to go into adjusting the housing stock would be enough money to make better so many problems that we already have, if you see what I mean. I'll leave you hoping you think you have understood what I meant. So going through these, the game, undefined or defined by circumstance through the ages, have given us these games with strange rules that governments have to balance the books. Why? Nobody knows. I'm not pushing MMT, because I'm kind of off it at the moment, but I'm saying nobody knows whether MMT is right or wrong, whether governments have to abide by these rules. Nobody knows, but governments do abide by these rules. And if there was hard and fast examples of where this went wrong in the past, that went wrong in the past, that made these reasons for these arbitrary rules on government to be in place, then we go, okay, that's sensible. But we really don't have them. And for business, okay, we say you've lost enough money over a 3-year period that the banks won't bankroll you anymore, you're out of business. Does that actually always make sense? Probably not, but it's just the way it goes. On the supermarket thing, as arbitrage opportunity gap come down, trillions of these small profit margins need to be exploited, and that can only be done by either it being thrown out to all the population or to very large institutions, and I think it's going to be very large institutions, company and country. And more money, less stuff, I feel that it makes sense, but I don't know what it means. And the housing stock problem, as in everything should surely have to wrap itself round the established housing stock that we have, because there's just not the resources to change that huge established infrastructure. And that's it. It's all a bit disparate, but that's where me brain is at the moment. So I need some help. Leave it with you. Thanks, bye.